Love is one of the most powerful emotions a human being can experience. It can lift us to the highest moments of joy, but it can also bring us to the deepest pain. One of the most difficult forms of love is one-sided love, when your heart is fully invested, but the other person's heart is somewhere else. One-sided love rarely begins with pain. In the beginning, it usually starts with hope. There is excitement in your heart, a quiet belief that something meaningful is growing between you and another person. You feel a connection, and that feeling fills your mind with possibilities. Every small interaction feels special. A message, a smile, a short conversation. These simple moments begin to carry deep meaning for you. At first, you do not question the imbalance. You are simply happy to give. You invest your time, your attention, and your emotional energy without hesitation. You listen to their problems, support them when they struggle, and try to bring positivity into their life. Your heart tells you that love is about patience and understanding. So you keep giving without expecting much in return. Hope becomes the fuel that keeps you moving forward. You believe that if you are kind enough, patient enough, and caring enough, the other person will eventually recognize your effort. You convince yourself that they just need time. Maybe they are not ready yet. Maybe they are dealing with their own struggles. Your mind creates reasons to justify their distance, because accepting the truth feels much more painful. Slowly, however, something begins to change inside you. You start noticing that the effort is not equal. You are always the one starting the conversations. You are the one checking in, asking how they are, making sure they feel supported. When they disappear for a while, you wait. When they return, you welcome them back without questions. You forgive small disappointments because you do not want to lose the connection. But with time, the weight of that imbalance begins to grow. Every unanswered message feels heavier than the last one. Every moment of silence creates more doubt in your mind. You begin to wonder if you are asking for too much, if even though all you truly want is a little attention, a little care, a little effort in return. One-sided love slowly becomes emotionally exhausting. You give so much of your energy trying to maintain the relationship that you protect your own heart. Your thoughts become occupied with them. You analyze their words, their tone, their behavior, hoping to find signs that they care the same way you do. But the more you give without receiving the same energy back, the more drained you become. Your emotional world begins to revolve around someone who may not even realize how deeply you feel. And this is where the quiet pain of one-sided love lives, not in dramatic moments, but in the slow exhaustion of always being the one who cares more. Because when hope continues to push you forward, even while your heart is growing tired, the love you once felt as something beautiful slowly begins to feel like a burden you are carrying alone. Love is meant to be a natural exchange of care, attention, and respect. When two people truly value each other, their effort flows naturally. They do not need to be forced to show up for one another. They want to be present. They want to listen, support, and share moments together. The connection feels balanced because both hearts are willing to invest in the relationship. But when love becomes one-sided, something begins to change in a very subtle way. At first, you may not notice it. You simply feel that the other person is distant sometimes. You think they might be busy or distracted by their own responsibilities. So you make excuses for them. You become more understanding, more patient, and more forgiving. You tell yourself that love requires sacrifice and that strong relationships go through difficult phases. So you try harder. You send the message first. You ask how their day was. You try to start conversations when things become quiet. When they respond with short replies or delayed answers, you tell yourself that at least they responded. You accept small pieces of attention, as if they are enough to keep your heart satisfied. Over time, however, the pattern becomes clearer. You begin to realize that you are always the one reaching out. You are the one making the effort to keep the connection alive. If you stop trying for a moment, the silence becomes longer and heavier. Days may pass without hearing from them, and it slowly becomes obvious that the relationship survives mostly because of your effort. And this is where love begins to turn into something painful, because love should never feel like you are asking someone to notice you. When you truly matter to someone, they do not forget your presence. They do not leave you wondering where you stand in their life. They do not make you feel like your attention is something you must beg for. But in one-sided love, the mind starts to accept unhealthy patterns. You begin lowering your expectations just to keep the connection alive. You tell yourself that even a small moment of attention is enough. You convince yourself that asking for more might push them away. So instead of expressing your needs, you stay quiet inside your heart. However, the desire for mutual care never disappears. You still hope that one day they will show the same interest you show them. You wait for the moment when they will reach out first, when they will ask how you feel, when they will show that your presence truly matters to them. But when love becomes a situation where one person constantly seeks attention, while the other gives it only occasionally, the relationship loses its balance. The connection stops feeling natural and starts feeling like a struggle. And deep inside, your heart begins to understand something difficult. Love was never meant to feel like you are asking for permission to be valued. When a relationship is built on the effort of only one person, it slowly loses its balance. At first, the imbalance may not seem very serious. You simply feel that you are the one putting in a little more effort. You are the one who sends the messages, the one who asks questions, the one who tries to keep the connection alive. In the beginning, you do this willingly because you believe love is about giving. You tell yourself that every relationship has moments where one person gives more than the other. Maybe they are tired. Maybe they are distracted by life. Maybe they are dealing with problems they have not shared with you. Because you care about them, you choose to be patient. You decide to carry the emotional weight for a while, believing that eventually things will become balanced again. But when time passes and nothing changes, the imbalance becomes more visible. You start to notice patterns. If you do not reach out, the conversation does not start. If you do not ask about their life, they rarely ask about yours. If you do not make plans or try to create moments together, those moments never happen. The relationship begins to depend almost entirely on your initiative. At this stage, many people begin to question themselves. You wonder if you are expecting too much. You wonder if your needs are unreasonable. Instead of recognizing the imbalance, you turn the questions inward and begin to doubt your own feelings. You try to become even more understanding, hoping that your patience will eventually bring the relationship into harmony. So you continue trying. You give more attention. You listen more carefully. You offer support whenever they need it. When they appear distant, you try to be gentle. When they respond coldly, you convince yourself not to take it personally. Your effort becomes constant because you believe that love should be unconditional. However, something important begins to happen inside you. Your emotional energy starts to drain. Maintaining a connection that depends mostly on your effort requires constant mental and emotional work. You are always thinking about how to keep the relationship alive. You think about what to say, when to message, how to avoid pushing them away, and how to remain important in their life. The relationship slowly becomes something that occupies your thoughts even when you are alone. Meanwhile, the other person may not feel the same pressure. They respond when it is convenient. They give attention when they feel like it. Their emotional investment is much smaller, which means they do not experience the same level of exhaustion. For them, the relationship may feel simple and casual, while for you it feels deeply significant. This difference in emotional investment creates a quiet but powerful imbalance. Over time, the person who is giving more begins to feel invisible. Your effort becomes so constant that it stops being noticed. The things you do to maintain the connection are no longer seen as special. They become expected. You continue giving because you care, but the appreciation you hoped for rarely appears. Inside your heart, frustration begins to grow. You may not express it openly because you are afraid that confronting the imbalance could push the other person away completely. So instead, you keep your feelings hidden. On the outside, you remain patient and supportive, but on the inside, you feel the weight of carrying the relationship alone. Small disappointments start to feel heavier. A delayed response, a forgotten conversation, or a lack of interest in your life begins to hurt more deeply. Not because these moments are dramatic, but because they confirm the imbalance you have been trying to ignore. When only one person keeps trying, the relationship slowly becomes less about connection and more about endurance. You are no longer simply sharing love. You are constantly working to protect something that may not be equally valued. Your mind becomes tired from hoping that things will change. Your heart becomes tired from giving energy without receiving the same warmth in return. And the connection that once brought excitement and happiness begins to feel like a responsibility that only you are carrying. This is the quiet pain of imbalance in love. It does not always appear through arguments or dramatic endings. Instead, it reveals itself through the slow realization that the relationship survives mostly because one person refuses to stop trying. When someone you care about does not return your feelings, it is very easy to turn the pain inward. Instead of looking at the situation clearly, the mind begins to search for reasons within yourself. You start asking difficult questions. You wonder if you said something wrong, if you were not interesting enough, if you were not attractive enough, or if you simply were not good enough to be loved the same way. These thoughts can slowly take root in your mind. When your love is not returned, the silence from the other person can feel like an answer. Their lack of effort may begin to look like a judgment about your value. Without realizing it, you begin measuring your worth based on how they treat you. If they respond warmly, you feel hopeful. If they become distant, your confidence begins to shrink. This is how one-sided love quietly affects self-worth. You may start comparing yourself to others. You wonder if there is someone else they care about more. You question whether another person might be more interesting, more successful, or more appealing than you. The mind creates endless comparisons, and each comparison slowly weakens your sense of self. But the truth is much simpler than the stories we create in our minds. Another person's inability to love you in the same way does not mean you are lacking something. It does not mean you are less valuable or less deserving of love. It simply means that emotional connections between people are complex, and not every connection grows in the same direction. Sometimes two people meet at different stages of their lives. One heart may be open while the other is closed. One person may be searching for deep connection while the other is not ready for it. These differences are not reflections of your worth. They are simply differences in timing, feelings, and personal circumstances. However, when you stay too long in one-sided love, it becomes difficult to see this clearly. You begin trying to prove your value instead of recognizing it. You give more attention, more patience, and more understanding, hoping that your effort will eventually make the other person see how much you care. You try to become everything they might want, believing that if you are good enough, they will finally return your love. But love does not work this way. True affection cannot be earned through constant effort or sacrifice. It grows naturally when two people feel the same connection. No amount of trying can force another person's heart to feel something it does not feel. Understanding this truth can be painful, but it is also important. Because the moment you stop measuring your value through someone else's attention, you begin to reclaim your inner strength. Your worth was never meant to depend on whether someone chooses you or not. Your value exists independently of their feelings, their choices, or their inability to see what you bring into their life. And when you begin to understand that your worth is not defined by someone's inability to love you back, the emotional chains of one-sided love slowly begin to loosen. Letting go of one-sided love is one of the most difficult decisions a person can face. When you have invested your time, your emotions, and your hope into someone, walking away can feel like giving up on something that once meant everything to you. Your heart remembers the moments when you believed the connection was real, and those memories make it harder to accept that the love was never balanced. For a long time, many people hold on because they believe that leaving would mean failure. They feel that if they just try a little longer, if they remain patient a little more, things might finally change. The mind becomes attached to the possibility that one day the other person will realize your value and begin to love you the same way. Hope can be very powerful, But sometimes hope keeps us trapped in situations that slowly drain our emotional energy. When love is one-sided, the effort never truly ends. You keep giving, waiting for the moment when the balance will finally appear. And when that moment never arrives, your heart becomes tired from carrying expectations that reality cannot fulfill. This is why letting go is often misunderstood. From the outside, some people may see it as weakness. They may think you walked away too soon, or that you did not fight hard enough for the relationship. But the truth is often the opposite. Letting go usually happens after someone has tried for a very long time. It happens after countless moments of patience, understanding, and emotional investment. Walking away from one-sided love requires courage. It means facing the truth that the connection you hoped for may never become real. It means accepting that no matter how deeply you care, you cannot control another person's feelings. This realization can be painful because it forces you to release the future you once imagined. However, letting go is not about rejecting love. It is about protecting your emotional well-being. When you remain in a relationship where your effort is not returned, you slowly lose parts of yourself. Your confidence weakens, your mind becomes restless, and your heart remains stuck in a constant cycle of hope and disappointment. Choosing to step away breaks that cycle. At first, the silence may feel heavy. The absence of the person you cared about may leave a space in your life that feels difficult to fill. But with time, something important begins to happen. The energy you once gave away begins to return to you. Your thoughts become clearer, and the emotional pressure that once surrounded the relationship slowly fades. You begin to rediscover the parts of yourself that were hidden behind the struggle of trying to be loved. Letting go is not an act of defeat. It is an act of self-respect. It is the quiet decision to stop chasing someone who cannot meet you with the same sincerity. It is the moment when you recognize that your heart deserves peace, not constant uncertainty. And when you choose to release a love that was never fully returned, you are not closing the door on love itself. You are simply making space for a connection where your care, your effort, and your presence will finally be valued. One-sided love teaches some of the most painful lessons a person can experience. It shows us how deeply we are capable of caring, but it also reveals the cost of giving our heart where it is not truly received. When you care more than the other person, the relationship slowly becomes heavy. What once felt beautiful begins to feel exhausting because love is no longer being shared, it is being carried. Many people stay in one-sided love longer than they should, not because they are weak, but because they are sincere. They believe in loyalty, patience, and the hope that love can grow if they simply give enough of themselves. But love cannot grow where only one heart is watering the connection. True love does not require constant chasing. It does not leave you questioning your worth or wondering if you matter. When someone truly values you, their actions make it clear. Their presence feels natural, their effort feels genuine, and their care flows freely. Understanding this truth can be painful because it forces you to let go of the illusion that your love alone can change another person's heart. But within that pain is also a quiet form of freedom. The moment you stop chasing someone who cannot meet you with the same energy, you begin to reclaim your peace. Your heart no longer has to fight for attention. Your mind no longer has to search for hidden meanings behind silence. And slowly, you begin to remember something important. Your love is not meant to be wasted on someone who only accepts it without returning it. The love you carry inside you is powerful, and it deserves a place where it is respected, appreciated, and shared equally, because real love is never about who tries harder. Real love is about two people choosing each other, again and again, without hesitation.